Hi. Yes, online, digital.
Can you introduce him?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So wonderful to be here. And I just want to echo Alita's comments about the mental and spiritual dimension of health and healing. And that's part of what I'll be talking about in this next presentation. So this presentation today was part of a dream, a vision of Waja senior lawman and Indigenous elder Wagan Gubru. This is Wagan here on the right. Your right. A picture of him taken on his birthplace in Palm Island. Before Wagan died in September last year, he told me, he said, "Zaf, tell others about my journey. Tell doctors and nurses about the different ways to treat our people better. Use my story to help others learn about our culture and healing." So my name is Zaf Smith, and I'm an emergency physician in Townsville, and I'm here with senior lawman and the eldest son of Wagan Gubru, the eldest son, Kuguman Bunbury that you can see here. And we're here together to tell the story of Wagan and his family. So I'd like to, introduce Kuguman Bunbury, who's dialing in from Sydney. Hello?
Hello there, Wabara.
Can you hear us all right?
Hello there, everyone.
So this is going to be a bit of a conversation setup, and we have a few questions and a bit of a discussion between Kuguman and myself. So Kuguman Bunbury, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Yeah, so I'm traditionally from Central Queensland, community called Warrabinda, and my tribe is the Wadja people. On my father's side there, and then on my mum's side, I'm from the southeast Kimberleys, from the Walmajari and Ngadi tribe, and our family has been on a spiritual journey, one of reawakening of the spirit and reviving Wadja traditional law and culture. And Dad's been on that journey as a young man and being mentored and traveled over to my mum's country where he learned law and culture and that, and eventually learned that and brought that back to Wadja country there and that. So, and we've been just on that journey of helping other groups revive law and culture, especially the kinship systems and that. So we thought that reviving just for our country was just bigger than us, and started helping other groups along the East Coast here with that journey of reawakening and revival of their laws as well. And that, so we've, as a family, we've been on that journey there and that. So yeah.
And that was a big part of your father Wagan's legacy, was the belief that Indigenous law was transferred to the West Coast for safekeeping, and that Wagan's destiny was to bring that law back to the East Coast and revive those cultural traditions. A big part of the Indigenous culture that your father and yourself practice is this kinship system. Could you share a little bit about what the kinship system means to you, Kuguman?
Yeah, so this is the Wadja kinship system. The kinship system to me is one of our governing foundations that governs community. It governs individuals with their relationships with everyone in the community. It determines your place where you sit, and especially where you sit for ceremony and that. But So for example, my skin name is Bunbury, and the red lines, they represent the marriage line, and the blue lines represent the children's line. Uh, Children get their skin from their mother. So for example, Bunbury marry Wangu, and Wangu marry Bunbury, but female Bunbury have Gurugilla children, and then vice versa. Gurugilla female have Bunbury children, and vice versa with Wangu and Guburu there, and that. And but yeah, it's basically how I see it as one of our governing foundations that um, coming back to law and sort of in a way decolonizing ourselves and coming back into law now, and reviving that, but also teaching that within our community again for that spiritual healing for the rest of the tribe, and that. So yeah.
Thank you. So maybe I can share a bit of a personal story about how the kinship system has affected my life, even as a non-Indigenous person. So when I was 16, growing up in Papua New Guinea, we had a family friend, this man here, Dr. Sirus Naraki, a member of the Baha'i faith community. And I was a teenager, and I asked Dr. Naraki, what should I do as a career? And it was through his encouragement that I'm here today, you know, having done medicine and finished emergency training. So when I moved to Townsville about 5-6 years ago, I met Wagan for the first time, and we became friends through the Baha'i community, but I did not know how we were connected. And when I told Wagan the story about Dr. Naraki and the inspiration he gave me in Papua New Guinea, Wagan laughed, and he said, now I know how we are connected. I am your brother. And I just looked at him thinking, what is this guy talking about? So Wagan explained that 25 years earlier in Sydney, he had met Dr. Naraki as well, and Dr. Naraki had become his mentor and, in a way, his spiritual father, and had taught him a lot of spiritual truths and insights. So although Dr. Naraki is of Persian, Iranian descent, I'm a Samoan Kiwi growing up in Papua New Guinea, and we have Wagan, an Indigenous elder. Through the kinship system, we saw our deeper connection as cultural and spiritual brothers through Dr. Naraki. And I think Wagan took me home and introduced me to his own family and gave me a title or a phrase, Wabura. Wabura means father. So this is how Kugelman and I have grown closer. And so this family tree shows a little bit about these connections through the kinship system, where we have Dr. Naraki at the top, his own biological kids on the right, Wagan in the middle, and then myself to the left. And these connections go beyond a biological genetic connection, but goes to that spiritual and psychological dimension. So then that makes all our children, Wagan's children, such as Kugelman, and my 3 kids at the same level as siblings in the cultural sense. So from this knowledge, you know, Wagan accepted me as family, really, and despite our outer ethnic differences, it's through this kinship system. And I think this is really the power, this other dimension that Indigenous culture and health perspectives can bring us, to bring people of diverse backgrounds to really see each other as one family. And then when you bring that into the clinical setting, you're no longer treating, oh, that's an Indigenous person, that's another, you know, another person from another background, but this is my brother. This is my family. So I think we'll move on now to Wagan's physical health conditions. So Wagan suffered from type 2 diabetes his whole life, He had ischemic heart disease, had a myocardial infarction and a coronary bypass, CABG at the age of 40, heart failure, kidney failure, hemodialysis at the age of 59, recurring skin infections, septic shock, been to the ICU, pretty much every ward in Townsville Hospital, medical, surgical, rehab, ICU, dialysis, hospital in the home, and where I live, the emergency department. So perhaps, Kugelman, you were the main carer for Wagan during his life. Could you share what it was like for you and for him living with these chronic diseases?
Yeah, you would think that, having all those chronic illnesses and that conditions and that, it would slow someone down. But from living with Dad with those conditions there, I saw that it never really slowed him down. Um, it's because I've seen that spiritual commitment to teaching law and culture, and also committed to uh, the, his responsibilities that have come from his ancestors. And, he'd be on his phone for hours on end, on his laptop. Even when he's admitted into hospital, he got his laptop there and phone and directing all the family members on what's the next step to take and that. So it never really slowed him down, even though doctors had suggested he should slow down on his cultural responsibilities. But many of our people know sometimes that's a big weight on our shoulders, and it's not that easy to give that up. And but yeah, it never really slowed him down. It just kept working right through till the last 2 years of his life there. But it never really slowed him down from even going to karaoke as well. So he loved his karaoke and that. uh, and that. But yeah, he's one of those three stooges there.
So perhaps we can talk a little bit about, he spent many months in hospital in the last couple of years of his life, and he was really tried to bring some of those cultural healing methods that he believed in so much, tried to bring those into the hospital setting. And this is a list of a few things that he'd shared with me, and I think you experienced as well. Perhaps, Kugelman, could you go through this list and maybe just touch on a few of these?
Yeah, so Dad, uh, being in hospital for, a few months at each time, uh, being in hospital, as you know, sometimes it's quite cold. And for us, we see that the sun also gives us energy. It also gives us warmth, and it revives us and that. And so Dad would always ask to go outside and get the sun and that. And we'd take him down out in a wheelchair, and he always used to joke around and said, "Oh, look, face my back to the sun. I need that face my solar panel, to the sun, get recharged there." And that. So yeah, he would always joke around there with his solar panel, like his back towards the sun, recharging up there and that, but also sat down outside with all the family there as well. Family was a very big one as well. Every time family came and visit, his whole energy and spirit lifted up and looked lively and that. And so yeah, family was a big one. Um, what else we got there? Gumby Gumby. Gumby Gumby is a bush medicine that's particularly um, grown around in the central Queensland region. And we boil that and make a tea out of that, and very bitter, but it helps with clearing um, your system out with colds and flus and that, and cleansing the insides and that. So back in Warrabinda there, because that's our main bush medicine, everyone back home, they would have a bottle of Gumby in the fridge ready to go and that. And so, yeah, that was a big one that Dad had also uh, in the fridge there and that. But yeah, yeah. Um, what else? I can't see the.
Oh, yeah, I think there's a couple of things like massage. Your dad
Yeah, that's.
suffered like chronic pain in his legs from his neuropathy, and he would often have different family
Mm,
members massaging his legs. And what that found, that was much better analgesic than endone, Nurofen, morphine, and just having that physical touch, that connection really helped with his pain much better than the drugs that we could offer him. Um,
mm.
maybe we can talk just briefly about one hospital admission where Wagan was unable to walk, and he had had rheumatologists, orthopedics, physios. He was started on steroids, had MRI scans, blood tests, and they couldn't quite really work out why he couldn't walk why his legs were so weak. The thought was whether he had an
Mm.
autoimmune myositis. But then your dad saw a traditional healer, and it seemed to have quite a profound effect on him. Could you share a bit about that experience?
Yeah, yeah. So Dad, having diabetes and all the rest. Um, at one point, uh, the diabetes. Well, the doctors was explaining about how the diabetes were affecting his nerves in his lower back, and affecting him to from walking and that. And Dad had mentioned to me that one time in the hospital that the doctor was explaining that because of those effects from diabetes and those nerve damages, um, that Dad had to start to pick out a wheelchair and also be sort of wheelchair bound for life, as the doctor was explaining. And because we got family back in the Kimberleys there, Dad have a plenty brother-in-laws there, bungees there, that spiritual healers, and so he rings up every now and then for help and see if he can get fixed up and that. And so yeah, one day went to the hospital for an eye appointment, and after he finished that eye appointment, he happened to walk past the doctor that had spoken to him about being in a wheelchair all his life. And Dad, by that time, was walking just as with no issues at all, walking past the doctor that had explained to him that he would be in a wheelchair all his life. And the doctor was just in shock that Dad had walked past him with no issues, and Dad had a bit of a grin looking at the doctor walking walking by, and that shocked the doctor in disbelief that how can this man be walking? He should be in a wheelchair by now. So just with that experience, with that spiritual healing, uh, it gives us shows evidence that it's uh, you know powerful in a sense that we don't have to go to lengths of operations and stuff like that. Yeah.
And I think this is a really good example where we have all this technology, MRI, blood tests, and yet we couldn't have a concrete explanation why this man couldn't walk. But then gaining that access to the cultural healers, the spiritual healers, that's actually what Wagan really needed, because that gave him that boost, that lift, that permission to walk. And that gave him, energy that it was literally a day later or two days later where he went from being wheelchair bound, there's nothing we can do for you, to literally standing pain-free and walking out of the wheelchair. And it was, honestly, it was quite amazing for me to see that, the before and the after. So I think just the last few slides to touch a little bit more about these traditional healers, or Nungaris, or in the Kimberleys, it's Mabran. Is that right, Kugelman? Mabran.
Yep,
Mabran
that's
healers.
in Maban. That's it.
And this is an extract from an article here where they've interviewed Josephine, one of the Nungaris, and she says, "We do not directly treat drug addiction or other diseases such as diabetes that they say were unknown in indigenous communities before European settlement brought new social problems and diets high in processed sugar and flour. But we will treat people suffering from mental distress, physical conditions such as injuries, muscular diseases, pain, and also issues surrounding pregnancy." So I think this is really interesting because traditional healers are not claiming that they can do an appendectomy, that they can, treat diabetes, give you insulin, but they can address a specific need that isn't addressed by our biomedical model. The issues of the intergenerational trauma, the psychological pain, the fear that they experience when they come to a hospital in a foreign environment. And this is from this I think is one of the crunch lines of this presentation, is that traditional healers in Wagan's context was a cultural intervention, a cultural experience that helped him reconnect with his ancestors and his spirit rather than a medical intervention. And I think that's a key distinction to make. And through these different healing techniques, through massage, healing touch, blowing, spiritual healing, it had given Wagan a reduction in his anxiety, healing of his psychological trauma, removal of his physical pain through massage, removal of cognitive blockage and obstruction, and a realignment of his spirit. And again, this is his story that he's sharing. So then I pose this question. So can traditional healers work alongside doctors in a hospital setting? And I think before this talk, I would have said, good luck with that. And it's probably not possible, or not in my lifetime. And then when we look through some of the literature, some of the articles, it's already happened. It's already happening. Here in not here, where are we? We're in NT, but disorientated. In South Australia, in Royal Adelaide Hospital, this is Cyril, who's a Ngangari healer, a traditional healer who's on the wards healing Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. And he says, I can help with pain. I help people with pain in their heads. So many young people here are in pain, mental anguish. And this is something I feel our biomedical model doesn't do as well as we think, addressing the psychological trauma and pain that we experience. And this slide as well, this is actually a FACEM, Dr. Jenkins in an article stating, I believed, and this is talking about Indigenous healers in the healthcare system, I believed it would encourage more Aboriginal people to seek medical treatment because they would know they could also access their Ngangari healing. If you don't address the spirit of Aboriginal people in the healing process, then they're far less likely to engage in the healthcare system. And I think Alita alluded to this with the vaccination program. It's about trust. If people can trust us in the healthcare system, because the trust has been really tested through history, where Indigenous people were taken away from their families in the hospitals. So there's a lot of work we have to do with trust, and I think having healers working together with doctors can help build that trust back up. Second to last slide. May this year, ASIM released the Reconciliation Action Plan. The plan refers to a report called Black Wounds, White Stitches, and it describes a new discipline within emergency medicine called social emergency care. Page 4, it says, traditional healers are listed as part of the workforce providing future training to these new social emergency care practitioners. So I think this is something written in our ASIM reconciliation action plan that we can work with. So to conclude, I'd like to invite a Cougarman again. If your dad was here, and I've crossed off if, because Wagan's here right now. What would you say, what would Wagan say to the audience about traditional healing?
Yeah, Dad was very adamant with everyone having equal rights, and recognizing that, you know, everyone in the hospital has rights to and are entitled to their specialized healing treatment. Like, when Christians are in hospital, they call, they like to call on the church to come and help say some prayers and that, and with other people from other religions. And I believe that we should also have the right as well to choose, um, traditional healing as for us as well in the hospital, and that shouldn't be, dismissed, anything like that. But also that Dad used to explain in many different contexts that one methodology is not superior over another, whereas if you have two methodologies, they should complement each other. And I guess in this, specifically here, we're talking about, Western medicine and traditional healing, and both bring the science and spiritual in harmony, and that, and also having recognized that our spiritual healers before settlement were our doctors already. They were our medical practitioners already. So, coming from an ancient and bringing that into the new, that it just makes everything a lot more stronger if the two worked together. And I guess, Dad would also encourage, clinics and that to look at what's working, because this is something with his experience in the hospital that at times were hard to actually have spiritual healer to come in, or use Redaka to rub over Dad, and that because it sometimes interrupted Western medicine. But we should have that right and entitled to our ways of healing, especially also in a hospital setting, Yeah.
Thank you, Cougarman Bunbury, for sharing your story and the story of your father, Wagan. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, Thank you. Yeah.